for a teacher to do. So.
Does that mean we get to act up?
No. I'll have to use my teacher voice. All right, thank you. Well, good morning to everyone. I'd like to call our meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order, and thank you all for being here in person. This is the first time we've rearranged the furniture to get back to our normal situation, so thanks for accommodating all the movement. And April, thank you for helping us to make sure that everything is functioning well in this new mode. So on our agenda, we have the minutes for the Committee of the Whole work session, and then we have some presentations. And our first presentation is an updating on Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and I'd like for Administrator Yorkie to give us an introduction.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you this morning. We have been working for a number of months to develop a plan for the creation of a Housing and Redevelopment Authority. When I interviewed for this job in September of last year, one of the things that I said I was going to focus on the most in my first several months on the job was just listening to folks. And I did that, and I listened a lot. And the thing that was really most prominent in so many of those conversations was the housing shortage here in Cook County. It's something that really impacts everyone and everything in this area, right? It has an impact on businesses, it has an impact on the hospital, on the clinic, on the school district, on county government as we try to recruit people. And we are able to find good people, but they look for housing and there's nothing there. And the problem, in the short time that I've been here, I started in October of last year, and the short time I've been here, this problem has only become more acute. And so there's a pronounced need, and I haven't heard anybody say, oh, county government, you shouldn't be working on this. In fact, I had one resident tell me that this was all I should be working on. Like I should just, literally, he said, I should just put everything else aside and just focus on housing. Okay, that's not realistic, but point is well taken. This is a big issue for us. And it's not only about, I've talked a lot about workforce housing, and that's certainly a key issue. We need people to be able to find housing so that they can fill jobs in this community. But it's not just about that. It's also about having housing for seniors. We have a population of over 25% in this county that are 65 and older. So we need housing for those folks. We need housing for people from all demographic groups. And that's the only way that we're going to have a vibrant, diverse community. And so this is hugely important. And I think there's been recognition for a long time that we really need to apply more resources to be able to sufficiently address this issue. The EDA has over time done a tremendous amount of work in this area with the One Roof project, and we've had some good successes. So it's not to say that we haven't been working on this for some time, but again, we've kind of reached a new place with our housing issues where it's the shortage has become so pronounced, and the issues around affordability. The real estate market is so hot right now that homes that were selling for a couple $100,000 a year or two ago are now selling for $300,000 plus. So affordability is a big issue because, a lot of the jobs in this community, whether they be tourism oriented or not, they don't pay enough for folks to be able to afford a $400,000 or $500,000 mortgage. So it's an acute situation, and it's something that I think everyone in the community realizes is probably the single most important issue that we're facing. And so we've been focusing a lot of time and attention on this in the months since I got here last year. And I just want to first start by recognizing our partners in this work. So today we have Mary Somnus from the Economic Development Authority, who's again been a real leader in this work. Mary, I really appreciate all your efforts and your leadership in this area. Mike Roth, City Administrator with the City of Grand Marais, has also been a really important partner in this work and has participated in our planning meetings over the last 9+ months, even before I got here. And we've had some great assistance from the Minnesota Housing Partnership. We've had Elizabeth Glidden and Ella Mitchell, whom you have visited with, and that they've been really important allies in this work and great resources of information. So what we are going to be discussing today is a proposed scope of work. And I'm going to let Mary tell you about the action that the EDA board took last week to enable us to move forward on this. The other thing that I want to mention that's really important is that next week at your regular business meeting, I'm going to be asking for your approval of the work plan and to approve the creation of a Housing and Redevelopment Authority. And we can certainly discuss more what the implications of that will be, and also the benefits that will come along with having an HRA in our community. So I think I will pause there, and unless there are any questions immediately, I'll hand it over to Mary.
Thank you so much. Mary.
Okay, thank you, James. As James said, we have been, the three of us, James and Mike Roth and I, have been working pretty intentionally with the Minnesota Housing Partnership, and bringing us to today, where the calendar will move forward as James has described. So this was on the agenda last week for the EDA, and they did pass motions of support to endorse the formation of the HRA under the auspices of the EDA board and taking responsibility for staffing of the HRA, and to approve the draft work plan with the intent that they will have a work session at some time in the not too distant future for them to dive in and provide input and comments to the work plan. They acknowledge that it is draft work plan. It's always printed with the watermark, and we want everyone to know that it's a living, breathing document intended to change as needed to allow the work to be done that needs to be done, but we had to put something down to start. So what we have here is based on pretty much my knowledge of the current situation in terms of housing and potential projects that are underway or in pre-development, and what other opportunities there are coming forward. That, I don't know if I maybe didn't add the language, and we should make sure that we add this edit, that if and when the county board approves this to go forward, then another step is, I believe, to gain understanding that the county and the city of Grand Marais both would need to give the EDA their housing and redevelopment authority.
Mm-hmm.
The authority to be that entity for the county and the city. But I think that's just a matter of a little bit of paperwork probably, and a motion by the respective boards, and it isn't, it shouldn't be a big undertaking. So, I can't tell you how happy I am to know that we're at this place. Thank you so much for taking this up for consideration. You know, I've worked more than full-time in the 5 years that I've been here, and I can tell you that one person just can't do it all. And if we want to move ahead in a good way with more housing for the benefit of our community, you just need more boots on the ground. And I'm really excited that this opportunity is coming forward, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I don't know, Mike, if you have comments to add as part of this team?
No.
So we do have the work plan up on the screen, and I don't know if it would be helpful to go through it. Commissioner Swalson, did you?
I would just go, so what I'm hearing you say is that I mean, we had some various options, I know that were being bantered about it, as far as, you know, separate board with HRA or incorporated with the EDA board, and it sounds like the current leaning is to put it in with the EDA board.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have a limited number of people in the community that volunteer to
Like
serve
Water
on
School,
boards,
yeah.
right? And I think the Joint Powers Group has created a housing work group that I've been working with for the last many months. And I think the discussion could continue whether that housing work group might want to serve as advisory to the
All right.
EDA board and have a role, because the more minds that come together to present solutions and help to carry the load, you know.
Well, and help it get up and really
Right.
making progress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there should be room for others at the table, but at some point, you know, the EDA board then, like, the buck stops here. This is where the vote occurs or
Right.
something, or the recommendation to the county and the city, or, I think everybody needs to just keep working together in communicating and, you know.
Well, and I think it would be helpful for that group as well, from the perspective, whoever, if this goes forward and we do get a person and we put them in that position, to be able to get up and get moving without them feeling, or having those same conversations that James has had with community members, that committee, housing committee would be helpful for them to
Yep.
get up to speed and get moving.
Yeah, they're dedicated and passionate and brilliant and good ambassadors for, you know, what we need to do. It's easy to say we need housing.
Oh, sure.
It's real easy to say. But then you
years.
have to do something, right? Really do it, walk the talk. So it's great. The more, I think, the bigger the team, the better the outcome will be, so. But everybody in their respective roles
Yeah.
and responsibilities.
And I'm glad you mentioned the housing work group, because, I mean, that is a work group of the formerly known as Joint Powers Committee, now Community Leadership Committee, that has been having discussions over a long period. And that group has many participants who have been sort of filtering in and out. So I don't want to leave you with the impression that somehow Mary and Mike and I are the only ones who've informed the development of this plan. There's actually been a lot of community involvement that is behind this.
And truly, that is the strength, the collaboration that's occurred between different organizations and creative, supportive individuals who truly will be ambassadors and can share with the community, can respond to questions that community members have. That group is a huge asset.
So I guess the other important thing to note, just speaking about the work plan at a high level, is that we don't foresee a silver bullet to solve this problem. It'd be nice, you know, no, really, I mean, it'd be nice if we could say, you know, if we just build an apartment complex with 50 rental units, our problem would be solved. And that's not going to do it by itself. We need different kinds of housing. Some of it might be multifamily, some of it might be single-family homes. There might be a need to revisit some of our zoning ordinances to enable development in places where it's easiest to develop. You know, there are different steps that we're going to have to take, and it's going to take some time. I mentioned the gentleman who came into my office and told me that the only thing I should be focusing on was housing. He also wanted this problem to be solved like within the next year. And I know we're going to make significant progress in the next year. The problem will not be solved in a year. This has taken decades to evolve, and it's going to take time for us to find solutions and really begin to make some significant headway. But I really think that the creation of the HRA is a really important next step in that process.
Yeah, we have some great projects that are in various stages of pre-development. There could be some groundbreaking next year, but, you know, it's a process, and nobody knows exactly if or when those projects are going to start. next year, but there is a desire on the part of some of those developers to get going. So, again, to have the staff to support that work and other staff to do the other work will just be so helpful to progress. And I really truly believe with the investment of an amount of funding from the county to pay for this position, that it will return in leverage dollars many times more than the cost.
Mary, can you talk a little bit about, I mean, that's been the case in your role at the EDA, in that you brought, grants and other resources to the community to facilitate economic development. I'm just wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that is a really good parallel to what we're anticipating with this position.
Yeah, thanks. That is the vision that I have. So the EDA, the cost, so just to have me in the director's chair, not the whole EDA levy, but the cost to have me, this was established as a 3/4 time position. So we're going for a full-time for the HRA, not for 3/4. Because I laughed when I signed that contract. There is no such thing as a 3/4 time position. So, but really truly, it costs less than $100,000 a year to have me do this job. It's way less. It's like $70,000 a year, I think, for my compensation package. And in the 5 years that I've been here, we've been successful in bringing $1 million a year at least in funds for projects. So, that speaks for itself. And that's my vision, that we're able to find someone with Housing and Redevelopment Authority background and experience and relationships that can just hit the ground running like I did and learn what projects are out there and what would be helpful to them. And the other thing that another door that opens with the HRA, if we want to do this, I don't know, this makes me a little, I'm not ready to say this is the best idea, but the HRA can own property. If there's nobody else out there that wants to take the risk and develop something, but we as a county, as a government, we understand that we're not going to have a problem renting up a place. So if we invested money, public money, to buy something and pay someone to rehab it, redevelop it, make it fit our needs, it's gonna get rented. The bills are gonna get paid. So
when you say
more than just grant funds that can come. It's
right. And when you say public money, that doesn't necessarily have to be levy dollars.
It doesn't have to be our money.
Right.
No, it can be money we go get from some other place.
That's the power of the HRA,
Yeah.
that you can access federal funds, funding that currently we can't access through the EDA.
Yeah, or and some of them we could access, but there's just not enough hours in the day. It's just, yeah.
So Mary, are you looking at the separate one to run the HRA and then someone to fill your position when you retire?
Yes.
2 of them.
Yeah, there'll be 2 new people if this goes forward.
Okay.
This afternoon, the EDA board will receive a recommendation for a candidate to take this position. And then if this goes forward next week, then we can start to talk about advertising for someone to start January 1st. We don't have to do that right away. I guess we have to wait until after the budget process, or I don't know exactly what the hopscotch goes like after that, but we can make progress forward and hope to bring a person on board as soon as possible to get going with the work.
Right.
That's what it's all about, right?
And so, speaking of budget, you can see on the handout that was appended to the agenda today, we are proposing a startup budget. This is a year 1 budget of $125,000. which is approximately commensurate with what the new EDA director will be making with benefits. And so it is going to be a full-time position.
It's not yet.
And Mary, your position has not had benefits, so that adds to the cost.
Yeah.
But this would enable us to get up and running. The expectation is in the first year, the HRA director would be pursuing funding that would enable the HRA to continue going on an ongoing basis with less or perhaps no levy assistance. How that's going to look is not entirely clear. But I would expect that the year 2 and 3 funding requests would probably be lower.
Yeah, I think because some of the funding that the HRA can go after can also help to fund overhead.
I believe so.
I'm not familiar with all the criteria and guidelines of those programs, but I believe there's some room for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can, and I think it is, I love the idea of less levy, but it is important, I think, for the community to understand that we really need to think about having some skin in the game,
Oh, yeah.
because all of those funders are gonna ask that. What are you putting into the pot?
Right.
You have to show that some level of commitment.
Mhm.
You can't, I don't think you can fund it with all outside money.
Right.
So
Right.
there's some, it's great that we anticipate not having it become a huge levy, but I think we need to imagine that there might always be some.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, and I think it's great that the group is considering this to be a full-time, year-round professional position with benefits, because that will attract the greatest talent
Mhm.
to do the best work. We talked about making another 3/4 time, and like, I can't endorse that plan myself, but it's better. Just get the best talent that you can.
Yeah. And ironically, the issues that this position would be working on are the very things that are driving up the cost of creating a position, right? Because of the housing expense. So yeah, that's definitely a factor.
I have a question about dollars now. So currently, the EDA levies $360,000. $100,000 of that has been traditionally used for housing. Are they going to use that $100,000 for part of this $125,000, or what's the thought of the EDA board on that?
I don't think, Commissioner Hawkins, I don't think that's their plan at this time. I think they're keeping that in the, and you'll be receiving the EDA budget proposal pretty soon. It's in a draft form right now. Their thought is to keep that $100,000 in the EDA proposed budget for 2022, because the HRA isn't created yet, and they want to have some funds for projects, again, to lever some other money. So I think, Commissioner Sullivan, are you on the Finance Committee? You've
That's
helped
correct.
prepare that?
And you are absolutely correct with that. We want to have some funding available for 2022 to support efforts. Correct.
So this would be a new request.
Okay.
And also, it's such a technical little thing, but $60,000 of the EDA budget is just a pass-through from the county to the EDA to the city for the bond payments for the creation of that's just
Yeah.
a little minor detail, but some of the EDA board members like to remind people that it's not all money that the EDA is using. It's
Right.
a housekeeping thing.
Yeah, and so is the city putting in any levy dollars?
All the
besides-
city taxpayers are putting in levy dollars, yeah.
Through that.
Whatever levy
That.
you approve.
Yes, I'm asking, is the city also going to include it in their budget?
No.
Okay.
Are there other questions for Mary or for Mike or for Administrator Lucky?
If anything comes up between now and next Tuesday, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Anything that I can do to help enable you to support this proposal, I'm at your disposal.
Well, thank you, Mary, and we want to thank you for the 5 years of good work you have done for our community and to bring us to this point, to create the collaboration and pull the energy all together to help meet the needs of housing in our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ann. It's been truly my pleasure.
All right, well, I know we're going to continue to work with you on this,
Yep.
and thank you so much.
On we go.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, at that point, we're going to move on to our safe routes to school. We have a discussion and a presentation, so I will turn it over to you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Haas.
I'm just going to go over some broad strokes on this. We included kind of a lot of paperwork in here. The two packets that we included, one was kind of the guide to establishing a school zone, put out by MnDOT. So it's basically, we have the authority as the local department to establish school zones. You can look up, I think it's Minnesota, I don't know, we don't need to get into the statutes, but it's in there. Here it is. Minnesota Statute Section 169.14, Subdivision 5A. Local authorities may establish a school speed limit within a school zone of a public or non-public school upon the basis of an engineering and traffic investigation. And so what that investigation is the guide that we had included in the packet. What Andrea and I have worked on quite extensively, Andrea more than anybody, I think, is putting this packet together, just compiling all the information to formally designate the school zone in front of ISD 166 up there and then GES as well. And so the area this would affect is along 5th Street, CASA 7, basically from the community center to the Gunflint. A little beyond the Gunflint, but that's the brunt of the area. That's kind of the broad strokes of it. I don't know if you
Yeah,
wanted to get into it.
so essentially the school zone signage that's up right now is not enforceable because it was never officially designated a school zone. And however those signs got put up in the past, I don't know anything about. And it also does not include the section of the Gunflint Trail that connects to the GES property, which is technically school zone also. So what we would like to do, could you?
There we go.
Oh, the
So
very
I'll
last
just,
page.
well, maybe I'll start by, so the bulk of this packet is the information that needs to be included in the study portion. You have to look at traffic data, pedestrian data, zoning, all of those things that are in that outline. So I'm not going to go through all of these pages. That's just the information that is needed before you can actually go through the designation process. So if you want to skip ahead to probably almost the last page, right there, the
Yeah,
map.
Sure.
Yep. Okay, so essentially, what we are proposing is to have the school zone designated, which the commissioners would do if you support it, and then to re-sign it in a more cohesive manner. And a couple things that I would note are that the intersection of Fifth Avenue West and Fifth Street lies technically outside of the school zone, but it is part of our designated walking route for safe routes to school. And that intersection itself has been the topic of safety discussions for however long the road probably existed. So we would like to add, even though it's outside of the school zone, we would like to add at that intersection and one on each side, an RFB pedestrian crossing. So that's the one where you push the button and it blinks to alert traffic that somebody wants to cross, which obviously is not relevant until the stoplight is gone. And you know, we could even maybe incorporate that into the reconstruct project for that street that's coming in a couple of years, or we could put it in advance. You know, it's something that, you know, we would have to figure out. And then also the addition of the, is it okay if I just go up here?
Absolutely.
So this, there's no speed limit sign coming down this road right now. So we would like to add a speed limit sign with a speed feedback, because we all know it's really easy to go really fast down that road. And then we would just clean up the crosswalk signs to make them more cohesive, and the schools, you know, we would take out the random signs that just say school and nothing else on the whole pole, you know. And the start and end here would stay the same. This is already a speed feedback sign, but we would like to add one coming this way because of the natural decline in the road. It's really easy to speed up when you're coming up to GES. And then we would also add the start and end school zone signage to these sides of the road, because there's no school zone approaching sign coming from this section, and there's no school zone signage here except for I think a sign that looks like this, maybe, I can't remember. Let's see. I think that's the bulk of it. When we presented to the Public Safety Committee, Stacy suggested the intersection at 3rd Avenue West, the crosswalk be painted as a high visibility. So I did add that to our painting plan, and already sort of talked with Lenny because we were talking about something else. And so that would be easily added in there. And that, I think that was the only addition that the committee had really for that. So,
And beyond the signage and that high visibility, then there were some other details around the actual crosswalk areas, correct, that we were going to propose? Or do you just want to focus on the signage and such?
I think it was just the signage, and or were you referring to repainting the crosswalks? Not the big ones that were jumping out, but just regular?
Well, there were some discussions in the committee at one time about, right there for the ISD 166, about changing some of that road structure right there as well. Is that a downstream?
Oh, yeah, so we did do, the Safe Routes School Committee was awarded a pre-engineering grant. And we're sort of in the end stages of that. So we had a consultant company come and collect, actually they collected a lot of this data, thankfully. And they collected data and did a sort of assessment of that stretch of road. So in the future, if that, you know, that project comes up, or if a project on that road comes up, then we have some information that we could incorporate. So what they, there was some talk, some inclusion about creating, I don't know if you remember that temporary project that we did a few years ago at the school intersection. So they had some suggestions for this intersection here to line it up a little better and to create they had a few different suggestions, but essentially some bump outs that would be less severe than the pilot project that we did. And then some additional sidewalk structure and things like that. But that would be for
Yeah,
later.
that's downstream.
That would be
I
for
just wanted
later
to make sure
use,
I
right? So
understood.
the benefit of that is that if funding becomes available to apply for, we already have plans that we're already one step ahead
Very good.
to, yeah, but that was a good point, thanks, because we haven't really shared that information widely yet either, so.
And I appreciate so much the signage coming down the old Gunflint Trail to remind people to slow down, whether it's a school zone or not. People, because it's a downward incline, really get going. And so I think that will improve safety for students as well as for people at the hospital or walking around the recycle center.
You're coming off of a higher speed limit
Right.
road as you turn, and then you're going downhill.
So that's a really important one that many people in our community have spoken about for a long time. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And then also on the far east side of the map, signage indicating from the east that you're entering a school zone is really important. There are so many people, so many students that walk that route coming from the east, whether they go to GES or ISD 166. And so
Right.
that's an
Yep.
extremely important addition.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
And next summer, we'll have that multi-use trail that goes from 61 up to 5th Street along the Gunflint. So, that would most likely increase foot traffic on that
Correct.
road too. So, yeah.
What is the speed limit on that stretch of Fifth Avenue West going down the hill?
30.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 30, but it just isn't
Yeah.
marked.
Yeah.
And that was a discussion we had during one of the meetings, and I was sitting there trying to remember, had I seen a sign, so then the next time I got called in to do a transfer at the hospital, as I turned on that to come down, I'm going real slow. And there was somebody behind me that was like, but I was looking for a sign. And
Right, and
and
the
it
street
doesn't,
view-
it actually doesn't exist there, which surprised me.
Yeah.
There's several signs, but there's none with a speed
Right,
limit.
and the Google Street View of that stretch is in the pitch black darkness, so
Correct.
it's very unhelpful. Yeah. Yeah, so essentially we are requesting you to, first of all, designate a school zone and then work in collaboration with, obviously, the SHIP program and however else we can find funding, because some of these signs exist, which you can talk about, but some of these signs exist, but some in our bank of signs, but some of them do not. So, there would be a cost to the appropriate signage of the school zone.
Has there been any discussion as Fifth Avenue West is improved in the future and there's a sidewalk going in there, putting in the buttons for the pedestrian crossing at the time that the sidewalks are being done?
We haven't talked about that yet, but like Andrea had mentioned, that could very well be a part of it.
Okay.
Right, because the stoplight will come down at the end of this year, and then, fingers crossed, if we've gone this many years without it, we could probably wait one more year, or two, or whatever, 2023 and 24 is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And the SHIP program can contribute financially to the cost of signs, so, we could, when that specific discussion comes around, we can talk about how that would be, because our new year will roll over shortly, and then I'll have a new set of funds to work with, so.
But just as a clarification, that just by the process next week when we take it up, if we certify the school zone, then the existing signage can be enforced, which most people probably believe it already can, but frankly, it cannot.
Yeah, so then for what it's worth as well, again, buried in the packet and the statutes is we couldn't make it 20 miles an hour all the time.
Right.
We don't have that authority. So what it is and what we kind of debated back and forth was, when you see when children are present, or Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 and 2 to 3, and that type of thing. And so what we opted for was the Monday through Friday sign with the times, because then that's clear. That's year-round, Monday through Friday, these times of the day, period. When children are present, it's difficult, because obviously if you're driving along and, I don't know, somebody's playing tennis, does that count?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and it's a little harder, you know, I feel like it'd almost be more distracting. And so that's the option we're gonna go with, is those two options.
Yeah, and when we consulted with Pat at the sheriff's department, that was his preference too, was that when children are present, was just a little too wishy-washy to. Well, his first preference, like ours, would have been to make it 20 standard, because that would have been the easiest, right? But like Robbie said, you know, none of us had that authority, so.
All right. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate your hard work and dedication. This is just so important, and has been a long time coming, so thanks.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I should have written it down while I thought of it earlier. Do you have any idea on what it's going to cost for signs?
That's where I was gonna go next.
Yes,
Okay.
no idea. But I can say, so the nice thing is, because this is County State Aid Highway 7, this is County State Aid Highway 15, State Aid Highway 12, we can use our state aid funding. And specifically, we can use our municipal state aid funding because we're within the city limits. And so those are funds we rarely use. And a lot of times when we don't use them, we can roll them over into the main construction one at the end of the year. And so we will be able to pull out of our municipal state aid funds. So as far as levy impact, should be nothing. Yeah, and I think, you know, the cost too is kind of associated. I did go through and look at kind of what we have versus what we need. The issue that you get there is a lot of signs in the county got put up about 10 years ago. Signs, typically you look at 20 years, generally, to say, and so the issue is if now we start pairing 10-year-old signs with brand new signs, you're gonna get a very odd disconnect once the sun starts going down and the lights start hitting it. It's gonna look a little goofy. And so, you know, in the ideal world, I think this would all be new. We do it all at once and say, cool, done. Or maybe pair up old signs together, try and do something so at least it looks coherent together, and it's not this weird disconnect of, you know, you just see school and then a super dull pedestrian sign. Well, you know, it'd be different if these were only a couple of years old or something like that. But so, yeah, and so I think once we kind of get a handle on which route we want to go, my guess will be the new route. But I can't imagine this is going to go anywhere near what we talk about with bridge replacements and that kind of stuff. So I know Warning Lights is an example of a company. They're doing all the installs along Highway 61. And so that's an option for us to, you know, we could talk with them and say, you know, hey, this is roughly what we're proposing. Do you have an idea how much it would cost? So.
Well, my personal opinion, I'm okay if you group the signs together then. And
Yeah, no, totally. That's definitely.
prefer,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
less wasteful that we can be. So.
Absolutely, yes. No, I get
Yeah,
that.
I mean, the intention would be to reuse whatever is possible, like the end school zone signs and all of that, you know, the speed feedback sign that we already have in place obviously will stay and, you know, yeah,
We'll try and reuse as much as we can.
yeah.
That's the intent.
Other questions? Well, if not, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
But Engineer Haas, you're on again to talk about turning over County Road 89 to the Grand Portage Reservation.
Yeah, this is a unique one. This is very outside of kind of my normal day-to-day. And I think it's one of those rare opportunities in my profession and maybe life in general, I guess, where you can do something fiscally responsible and morally responsible. A lot of times to do things that, you know, might be better for something generally costs more. And so, yeah, if you're not familiar, County Road 89 is I think it's old Highway 61. That's right. Yeah. So it's, yes, from Mineral Center. So it's not 17 is the whole U there, and so 89 is just from where the new pavement ends up to the border. MnDOT currently pays us, I think, $5,000 a year, yeah, to just keep it open. I think in the past 5 years, if I remember our summary right, we've spent anywhere from $27,000 to $40,000 to maintain it, even though it is, well, just to go out there and plow it, to grade it, to keep it up as a road. I don't believe, in talking with Bobby up there and myself, just trying to figure out, I don't think anybody lives there. It's just a dead-end road. And so this was one that we kind of identified in talks with, Bobby and then Kurt, another representative of the BIA. This sounded like a very good opportunity to do something right and turn over a county road to the band. Shows our support for recognizing tribal lands. And yeah, that's kind of where that's at. So, any questions?
Have you spoken, I know you had spoken to the tribal chair. Have you spoken to the Reservation Tribal Council about this?
I have not. I don't know if Bobby had that opportunity. I would assume, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
It's a nice wilderness road.
It is.
Yeah, road to nowhere.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's right.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Yeah, so does the tribal council plan on maintaining that road themselves then, or?
I think he was, so like I had said, MnDOT pays us right now. We have a contract with them, and I think somebody goes and inspects it and makes sure we plow it in the winter. And so I think that is a potential for the tribe to enter into with MnDOT to receive those funds then for them to maintain it. So.
And they have the resources available to maintain that road
Correct.
The way they want it maintained.
Correct.
Do they get extra funding from the state?
They do not. This was kind of part of a larger discussion we had about turning over all of the county roads in Grand Portage to the tribe. And talking with them, and there is no extra incentive for that to occur. And so I was like, well, that does a disservice then to the community, that just hurts everything. And so this was one road we had identified though that was, something that was one they could maintain and still kind of serves our purpose of trying to turn things back. So.
Other questions, comments?
Doesn't affect our mileage. It reduces our county road mileage, but it doesn't affect any allotments we get from the state. It's just kind of less for us to do and a good thing to show.
Well, I appreciate your commitment to looking at doing the right thing. I want to thank you for that and keeping that in mind as we do all our work. It's so important. All right, well, thank you much, Engineer Hess.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. Well, at this point, we have minutes of our standing committees. Just for information, we have minutes from Personnel and the Building Committee. And boy, have we flown through our agenda. Commissioner Hawkins, you were a good role model at our earlier meeting, so thank you for that.
I didn't have too many questions today.
All right.
Any reports either. No, that's
There you go. Well, with that, I think we are ready to adjourn. You got here just in time, Auditor Powers.
And Robbie, I get so many compliments, and I'm passing them on to you about doing the fluoride.
Oh, thank you.
And those that don't have it.
Yeah.
Which are federal land.
Yeah.
White Pine area and all that. It's like, okay, I can't do anything about that because it's federal.
Yeah. I think the chloride application this year is very apparent.
Yes.
A lot of white, because we had to ration a little bit, we had spot treat. A lot of phone calls about, well, why didn't you do here? Why didn't you do here? And it's like,
Nobody lives there.
Yeah, or, a lot of times it's just we only have so much and we have to, you have to make a decision.
No, you see that when I drive down North Road, there are sections where there are driveways and things, and it's been treated, and then you go through sections where, and initially when I went off, I thought,
Mm.
And then, you know, it doesn't take, you look around, you're like, well, nobody lives here.
And then you realize that there's a lot of people who don't know how to drive on a gravel road.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah. But, yeah, that was, I guess we'll get into it next week with budget things, because that was something